everyone, this is Vitalis. Let me surprise you with a wild true story. And keep your mind on it, true story. Once upon a time, two boys were fighting. Or were they? In fact, one was beating up on the other. I'm sorry to tell this kind of story here, but we just gotta do it. I can't remember how they got to the fight, but that's not important. Apparently, there was no other way for the boys to settle the issue than to throw fists at each other. Now, although you'd call it a fight, one boy stood there with one shoulder facing the other boy. The other boy was hitting his shoulder repeatedly. When the left shoulder was tired of receiving the beating, the boy turned the other way and the other boy continued hitting his right shoulder, and so on and so forth. No, don't think that the boy who was receiving the beating was avoiding the fight. No. He pretended that he was calculating and looking for the right moment to throw his first punch. You know how boxers do this, right? They bow, they go backward, forward, make silly moves, cover their faces, etc. So, the first boy was doing all of this but would not throw a punch. Let me tell you what was happening here. The boy who was receiving the beating believed that he could not win this fight, but he would not admit it in fear of losing face. So, he pretended he was calculating and waiting for the best opening to knock out the other guy, when in fact, he begged goodness to get the bystanders to break in and stop the fight. You see what I mean? He inwardly begged for someone to step in, but he had placed his confidence on outside loaders or on other people instead of placing his confidence on himself and taking proper action. Follow me here. What else could you call the attitude of our guy who kept making big moves but never threw a single punch? Plain simple, right? It's simple. He wasn't self-confident and nothing hard about it. And I know this because, and listen to this, I was the boy getting the beating. Yeah, that was me. The other guy was beating at me. Maybe you have been in the same situation too. If it was not in a physical confrontation, maybe it was when you couldn't make a move because you thought you couldn't succeed in something without someone else stepping in. I don't know. This guy receiving the beating took a beggar position. Unlike a confident beggar though, who would walk up to you in the street and ask for a blessing, the guy in the story hid himself in a camouflaged courage and would not ask for help. Not only did he not have confidence that he could defend himself against his assailant, but also he didn't have confidence that by asking for help, he would still be himself in the eyes of his peers and receive that help. He risked bigger damages just to cover his weakness. Self-confidence is essential in everything we do. In the paper Self-Confidence and Personal Motivation, Roland Benabo and Jean Terral declare that self-confidence helps our motivation. There is never a better way to address an issue and solve a problem than to identify the said issue. If you do not know what you're dealing with, I'm talking in general terms, there is no way you're going to figure out how to go about it, how to solve it. For you to get some food, for instance, you must know that the pinching you feel in your stomach is hunger, or else you will run to the doctors instead. Now, Going to see the doctor for hunger is just unusual and besides unwise. The first step of solving a problem is to identify it. From time to time, we get to a point where our self-confidence is challenged. To address this issue and get back on track to boosting our self-confidence, the first thing to do is to identify what drives our self-confidence down. Finding the problem must not be taken lightly. It is a serious issue in itself, as the solution depends on it. So, how do we identify a problem? Stick with me and bear with me here. You will discover it next time. But in the meantime, whenever you have an issue, do not jump right into the solution without identifying the problem itself in depth. When I work with people, when I coach people, that's what I suggest we do first. Sometimes it is difficult to do this on your own. At some point, depending on the complexity of the issue at hand, I can identify my issue on my own. It takes honesty and poise to realize that we need an additional hand at times. If you ever think you need an additional hand for something ever that you're working on or something you are facing, do not be the beggar who could not beg. It doesn't have to be a bad situation. It could be a bad or good situation. We always need someone to help out. Successful people seek coaches to help them be more successful. And this is not my statement. This is a statement of successful people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. They look for help. They hire coaches to help them realize bigger successes. Remember that. Do you have a question, a suggestion, or comment regarding this post or this video or any issue pertaining to it, or just something you need clarity about? Talk to me by going to my website www.actonyourdreamtoday.com/contact. If you liked it, please share it with your friends and family members. Peace.